Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about, red dot and magnifier versus LPVO or some other type of magnification scope for shooting distance, okay? Not for CQB and stuff, because most people accept that most people accept that the red dot is better for CQB, okay? Because with the red dot, I can be in some awkward position like this, right, in an unconventional position, and I can still make my shots. Okay, so easy stuff, right? So that is an unquestionable advantage to a red dot versus an LPV. Okay, so we're not going to argue the point that the red dot is better for CQB, but let's consider at further distances. And I did a video recently where I was shooting 400 and 500 yards side by side on the same day, right? I mean, the videos were separate, but it was done the same day, where I had this scope out there. Okay, this scope is a 2.5 to 20 magnification, right? This has a parallax adjustment. You dial up. This is the Night Force, okay? So this is the Night Force 2.5 to 20. So this is a $2,000 scope, okay? So I shot that at 400 and 500 yards, and I was shooting 7.62 by 3.9. Okay, that scope right there is on a 7.62 by 3.9 upper, using that scope and the magnification, I believe the best group I got that day was 2.2 MOA. Okay, 2.2 MOA with 7.62 by 3.9. Now on a different day, I've also had this scope shooting 400 and 500 yards. So this is the primary arms PLX, okay? And I haven't shot it recently at 400 and 500 yards, but I know I've easily gotten like 2 MOA with 5.56 at 400 and 500 yards on the 16-inch barrel. I guess because this one over there and that one over there, 16-inch barrel. Okay. So on the same day I was shooting the 7.62 by 3.9, I was also shooting this 11.5 inch, okay, this AR pistol with the red dot and the magnifier. That's a Vortex 6X magnifier, okay. So now here I'm very much compromised because I only have an 11.5 inch barrel. The magnification only goes up to 6X because this one over here on the 7.62 by 3.9 went up to 20X, okay, and this one over here, this PLX, goes up to 8X. So these obviously have a magnification advantage. By the way, this is a $1,500 scope. So the reason why I pulled out these scopes is because we're comparing the red dot and magnifier to basically top of the line scopes, all right? So the PLX $1,500 scope, Night Force $2,000 scope. So the question now becomes, okay, fine. What did I do with the red dot and the magnifier in the 11.5 inch barrel? And I already posted the video. I'll post a small clip at the end of this. I think the best group I got was 2.8 MOA. I think that was at 500 yards. Okay, so obviously the 2.8, right, that I got in the 11.5 inch with the red dot and the magnifier, okay, is not as good as what I got with this Night Force, right, in 20 magnification, because I think this was a 2.2 using a 7.62 by 3.9. So this one got a 2.2, the other one got a 2.8, 500 yards. What exactly does that, what's the difference? I mean, we're talking about a difference of an inch or two at 500 yards. So with the with the 7.62 using the higher magnification, I got a slightly smaller group. It was like, I don't know, maybe 13 inches. I don't remember offhand, but it was about 13 inches. Whereas with the other one, I think the group was like 15 inches, okay? So that's the difference. Now, in any case, the average man's about 20 inches wide. They're both inside the width of the average man, okay? 18 to 20 inches. They're both, so either one will get hits to 500 yards, okay? So So as far as getting the job done, they will both get the job done. Now, as far as the practicality, what was the shooting experience? So with the Night Force, okay, when I got myself into position, okay, so first I gotta zoom down, right? So with these throw levers, they usually take a little bit of, you gotta basically, you're doing a little turning. They don't just, you can't just flip it back and forth with your finger. You gotta use your thumb. You gotta, even with the throw lever. So you gotta basically start off at 2.5 magnification. That's so that you can get on the target. Right, flip off the caps. Right, get on the target. Right, once you get on the target, right, then you magnify up, because the reason is if you start off with a high magnification, you're going to be fishing for the target. It's going to take you longer to find it. So you got to start low magnification, get on the target, then zoom up. You basically zoom into it, right? Then what I got to do is I got to do a parallax adjustment, right? Because with these magnification scopes, these variable scopes, when you're in one magnification, even if you're looking at the same distance, right? Anytime you change the magnification, the parallax changes as well. So in order to bring it into focus, I gotta do now a parallax adjustment. And on this scope, okay, I have to then dial up, okay? So basically I have to dial up. Now this is an MOA scope, so at the 500 yards, it was an 18 MOA, so I'm turning the dials here. So all this is taking time, right? All this is taking time. Now, when you have a scope that goes up to 20 magnification, you have to dial up. You can't just hold on the reticle because it's a first focal plane scope. And what happens is, like when you're zoomed back in 1x, you see the entire reticle, right? But then as you zoom in, what happens is the outer portion of the reticle falls out of your field of view, right? So if you're going to be holding down, what's going to happen is at 500 yards, my holding point on the reticle would have been at the bottom of my view, at the bottom of my scope when I'm looking through it. So with these high magnification scopes, you have to dial up so that your aiming point comes to the center of the glass, okay? So one of the issues I have found with these type of scopes where you have to dial up, okay, as part of my exercise, what I then did is I went to a closer distance and I did some CQB shooting, right? And it's like, oh shit, man, I forgot to dial back down, okay? So I was looking for chest shots and they were going high, which is fine. You'll get a headshot unless you're going over the shoulder. Now you're getting misses. But the point is that I forgot to dial back down to the zero. This has this Night Force has a zero reset. So I have to dial back to zero so I can make my hits at CQB distance. So if I go back to further distances, I gotta go through that whole process again, right? I gotta, I gotta first zoom down the magnification, get on target, zoom up, do a parallax adjustment, right? Dial up. So there's like 3 steps there, right? There's 3 steps with this scope. Now, for that effort, right? I did actually get a slightly better group. Okay, I got a 2.2 MOA instead of the 2.8 MOA I got with this. Okay, now with the LP, but here's the thing: you do get a bigger, more magnification, 20 magnification. It is easier to hold on the target, right? So I can basically find a holding point. I can zoom in on it. I can, when I press the trigger, I can make sure my reticle doesn't jump off the target. If I see that it does, like for my next shot, I can be, I'm a little bit more conscious. I can make sure I press my trigger straight back. So it is a useful tool for making shots at distance, having more magnification, right? And also if the background is such, if you spot hits, like let's say you're not exactly sure what your holdover needs to be, on some backgrounds, you're able to see the impacts and you can adjust. On the background that I was shooting at, I couldn't spot the impacts just because of the background. So like if you're on in an area that doesn't have any grass, that's just dirt, you might be able to spot the impacts. I was in an area where it was a dark background, no way to spot impact. So that wasn't possible. Now let's talk about the LPVO. Primary arms, PLX, okay? So we got the $1,500. Now this one, because it's an LPVO, okay, we got less magnification, so it's 1:8, okay? And LPVOs don't have a parallax adjustment, which is one less step, okay? So with this, I get into position, right? I have the bipod off now, but I would open up the bipod, get into position, right? I check my bubble level, make sure the rifle's not canted, right? So with this, I start off in 1 magnification, then zoom up to 8 magnification, and I'm ready to take my shot. So I don't have to sit there fussing with a parallax adjustment, and I don't have to sit there fussing with a dial-up. And because this only goes up to 8 magnification, okay, I'm basically at 500 yards. I'm going basically here. This is for the red dot, but at 500 yards, basically, instead of holding there, I'd be holding there. So it's not because you're not zooming in too much. Okay, you're not going too far down on the reticle. So you're just going down a little bit. You put that on the target and you take your shot. So there's no dialing up. Even though this PLX comes with a different turret with an exposed turret that you can swap in so that you can dial up, it doesn't make sense. There's no need to dial up because it's just extra time. Okay. Now, as far as the parallax, this is parallaxed for 100 yards. Okay. So when you're shooting if you're shooting inside of 100 yards or further out than 100 yards, what can happen is if your face is not perfectly centered on the gun, if it's a little bit left or right, your parallax might be off. The way it typically works with these scopes, right? The practicality is that when you get on this, right, you're rarely going to be like in the perfect position. You're usually going to see a little bit of shadow, right? So what you do is you just make sure that you are centered on the shadow, right? So you're centered on the shadow, and then you slide your head up, and now your parallax is perfect. Okay, so there's a really easy solution to not having a parallax, right? You just use the shadow. You just slide back from the scope a little bit, so that you basically get yourself out of the perfect eye relief position. You see the scope shadow, you center on the scope shadow, then you slide up, and your parallax is perfect. Okay? So with this scope here, this LPVO, where I'm just going from 1 up to 8. Okay, again, there's time involved here, right? Because you can't. It's not just just not flipping it. There's a rotation thing going on here, right? And that's, if you don't have a throw lever, it actually takes even longer. So you gotta go from 1 magnification, get on your target, then rotate up to 8, then find your holding point on the target, and then you take your shot. Okay, so definitely easier than what I gotta do here, right? Which is zoom up, parallax adjustment, dial up, and then remember to dial down before I get out of position, because when I get to my next position, my whole the aiming point is going to be wrong. Okay. Now let's talk about the red dot. The red dot now with the magnifier. So this is the holosun 503G. This has the ACSS reticle that looks like this. And Primary Arms also has a couple of different scopes that have the ACSS. So with this, you've got a 65 MOA circle. So you use that to do your range estimating, right? So basically, if your man stands foot here, head here, that's 100 yards. If his foot is there, head is there, he's at 200 yards. If his foot's here and he comes up a third of the way, he's at 300 yards. If foot's here and his head comes up half the way, he's at 400 yards. So you can quickly find your distance, your range, using the 65 MOA circle. Okay, and as far as 560 yards, foot here, head up to the arrow, he's at 500 yards. If his foot's at this dot and then head comes up to that dot, he's at 600 yards. And then what you also do is you use the arrow here to the edge of the arrow here for a 5-mile-per-hour wind, and then you would double that for a 10-mile-per-hour wind, and you can go all the way down for that. Okay, so and then as far as your holds, right? So 200 yards zero at the tip. The legs are 300. The first dot is 400. Second dot is 500. The third dot is 600. Okay. Now you still gotta know your holds, because what was happening is with the 11.5-inch barrel, right? The bullets are coming out a little bit slower. Okay. So the 200 and the 300 yard worked out pretty good. At 400 yards, basically, I got to hold on the face to drop them into the chest. At 500 yards, you know, with that 11.5 inch, I got to hold the dot on top of the head to drop them into the chest. And at 600 yards, I would basically go belt to head, over the head. That would be my 600 yard hold with the 11.5 inch. Now I'm also using cheap target ammo. So my 55 grains, we're not going 3,000 feet per second. They're going, I think it was like 2,500 feet per second. So my bullets are going a lot slower. So again, you got to know your holdovers. If I was shooting like green tips or something, probably each of these dots would be a dead on, right? So for 400 yards, I put it on the chest, 500 yards on the chest, 600 yards on the chest. That's probably how it would work out. I haven't tested them out, so. But the point is that with the red dot and the magnifier, right, the way this works, because now we know how to use the reticle, and the way it works is you need to use the magnifier in order to see the details that I just showed you on that whiteboard, okay? Without the magnifier, you can't make out the dots. The 3 dots look like one line. So with this, the way it works out, I open up my legs, get into position, keep the magnifier off, right? Get on target, right? Because same deal here. I can't just try to get on there straight with the magnifier because I'm going to be doing too much fishing. So you get on, right? You get on target, then you flip your magnifier on. You're on target. You go to your holding point. You take your shot. So it's a lot easier doing this and that, okay, versus using that throw lever to go back and forth. So, so the point of this video, right? And I did mention it briefly in one of the other videos that I did. The point of this video is don't just assume that the bigger scope, right, the dedicated distance shooting scope is always going to be the better option. Okay, don't just assume this, because this scope over here, there's a lot more work involved. There's basically, you know, adjusting your throw lever, adjusting your parallax, dialing up. With the LPVO, it cuts out some steps, okay? I don't have to do parallax. I don't have to do dial-ups. It's just throw lever, you know, start off with 1, go up to 8, and then just, you know, go down to the right holding point, take my shot. That throw lever still slows you down, okay? And then with the red dot with magnifier, that's even faster, because it's really easy to flip the magnifier back and forth, get on target, go to your holding point, take your shot. Now, this is not to say that these scopes are not useful. Okay, they're very useful. If I know that I'm only going to be shooting at distance, these are a lot more comfortable to work with, right? If I know I'm only going to be doing distance. So, you know, they're less tiring on the eye, right? They collect light better. There's a whole bunch of reasons why the bigger scopes tend to work better, okay? But they work better for doing something very specific, which is, you know, especially the 2.5 to 10. They really do the long distance shooting really well. They don't. This one over here does not do the CQB well at all. Okay, it does it horrible, because this only goes down to 2.5. With this one, I'd have to basically piggyback or offset like a pistol red dot, you know, which now is more shit on the gun, more snag hazards, etc. The LPVO, first of all, it's lighter, right? It's a little bit lighter. Because it goes down to 1x, I don't have to piggyback a red dot on this. I can make this work. However, the thing with the LPVO is that this is never going to be as good as the red dot for CQB, because if I'm in 1x, right, I can't, if I hold this out like this, like I was doing earlier with the red dot when I was shooting that target over there, like here, I see a whole lot of shadow. Okay, so from this position here, all right, basically I can only see about 20%. My view through the glass is cut down to about 20% because of that scope shadow. Okay, so in an unconventional position, this is really not good. Okay, so this doesn't do the job of the red dot very well, right? And for distance shooting, okay, I don't have as much magnification. If this only goes up to 8 magnification, it doesn't go up to 20, right, or even 15 like some other scopes. So I'm really limited to 8. I do have one that goes up to 10, right? But that's usually where they top off at, 10 or 12 magnification. And then what happens is, as you go up in magnification with the LPBOs, the 1x tends to suffer. Okay, so with my 1 to 10, the 1x is not, the 1x view through my 1 to 10 LPBO is not as good as this 1 to 8. Okay, so with LPBOs, as you go up in magnification, that 1x tends to suffer. Now, the great thing about these scopes here, right, both the LPBO and that Night Force, is there's a lot of information in the reticle that I can use to do other things, right? So, for example, on the LPBO, I've got mill lines, right? So I can range other things besides just the man. With the red dot, I'm pretty much limited to using, to ranging just the man, right? That's what's set up. Now, I could turn this sideways, and I can also auto range off the front end bumper of cars, because most cars are about 6 foot wide. So you can also turn it like this, and you can auto range that way. But you're pretty much limited to auto ranging off of 6 foot things. Okay, I mean, can you extrapolate to something else like let's say most cars are about 15 feet long, which is kind of like double-ish of 6. I mean, yeah, you could start doing that, but now you start doing like a lot of calculations in your head, and you're usually going to be wrong. So it's a lot easier to just work with 6 foot things, right? Things that you know are 6 foot, like either a 6 foot man, right? Most men being close to 6 feet, or the front end bumper or rear end bumper, which is also 6 feet wide. If you turn this sideways, that will also work good. But yeah, the great thing about those scopes is that they have mill lines, so that, like for example, all tractor trailers are about 75 feet long. They're all about 13 and a half feet tall. Most doorways are about 80 inches tall. So there's a lot of things out there that are standard. Okay, that you can use the larger scopes for. The other thing is, with those mill lines, you can also do team navigation. So what that means is, I can use the reticle, the mill lines, to basically direct a team member, right, somebody I'm working with, to see what I'm looking at, right? So if I say, hey, you see that target out there in the middle? Yeah, the big one. Well, look, whatever, let's say 10 mils to the right of it. I want you to look over there and tell me what you see. So I can do that with a scope that has mill lines. Okay, we can also spot for each other. If we both have 2 scopes that are even mills, or 2 scopes that are an MOA, and they know what I'm shooting at, they can spot for me, and they can tell me, hey, adjust whatever 2 mils to the right or 2 mils up or whatever. So you can do that with complex reticles. Okay. With the red dot, you can't do that, right? So that's where the red dot is limited. So, but if you're just working by yourself, right, and you're not, because here's the thing, with the 6X, you're really not going to be able to self spot. You're not going to be able to spot the impacts. In fact, even with the 8X, at 500 yards, I can't spot impacts, even if the background is such where, let's say, it's a little easier to see. With the 20X, you can self-spot impacts in the right background. Okay, so the more magnification you have, the easier it is to see where the impacts are, and to self-correct for yourself, or correct for other people. Okay, tell them, even if they don't have a similar scope, you can say, hey, hold about a foot to the left or a foot to the right. Okay, so you can do that with more magnification. You cannot easily do that if you just have a red dot with a magnifier behind it. Now, practically speaking, like I said earlier, this is a 6X. I have found the 6X to be a lot more useful than the 3X. Okay, anytime I'm shooting distance, I always pull out the 6X. I almost never have a situation where I prefer to use the 3X. Okay, so and here's the thing: you might say, well, the 6X narrows your field of view. Well, if that's an issue, I'll just flip it off. If you're trying to track somebody, or if you got somebody that's moving, you just shoot it without. Forget about 3X. Just shoot it with the red dot. But if I need to zoom in on something, right, and look at it, that's when I use the magnifier. So I'm generally going to work without the magnifier until I need the magnifier. Okay, so that's how I work with this setup, the red dot and the magnifier. But anyway, I wanted to do this video, okay, because I want people to not just always assume that if you're shooting distance, 300, 400, 500 yards, don't assume that the magnification scope is always going to be the best option. Okay, it may not be, because if speed is involved, if you need to get the shots off faster, the red dot and the magnifier can be quicker. Okay. Now, how about shooting past 500 yards? Okay, past 500. That's an important point that I almost forgot to mention, because I've done plenty of videos where I'm shooting like 600 yards to 1,000 yards. Okay, so 600 yards to 1,000 yards, the red dot and the magnifier are severely limited. Okay, they're severely limited. So that's just not the best tool for the job. For 600 to 800 yards, this LPVO works great, because this has holding points out to 800 yards. Although making hits at 800 yards really hard with this, with a 5.56. 700 yards I can kind of do. I mean, I've actually made hits at 800 yards, but you got to have like almost no wind, So because again, at that distance, at 800 yards, the 55 grain or the 62 grain or even the 75 grain, the 5.56 is not going to make a big splash. So if you at that distance, if you can't spot your impacts, it's hard to correct, because like 600 yards and in, I can pretty much use the holding points that I know, and usually make my hits, unless the wind is like crazy. Okay, once you go 700 yards plus, even a really light wind is going to affect your bullet, right? It'll move it, so you gotta be able to spot your impacts. But not only that, but even as you go from one type of ammunition to a different one, right? Even if it's within the same weights or one barrel length to a different one, you're gonna see really big differences. Okay, so inside of 600 yards, the barrel length, the bullet speed, the wind, they tend to matter a little bit less. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I was able to get out to 500 yards with this 11.5 inch using a 55 grain, and get like 2.8 MOA. Okay, so inside of 600 yards, those other factors matter a little bit less. The speed, the different variations in bullet speeds from either from the barrel length or from the ammunition itself, they matter less. But once you go over 600 yards, those things matter a lot. So now you really need a magnification scope for more than anything to spot your impacts and make corrections. Okay, so yeah, I don't want to leave this video making you guys think that the red dot and the magnifier is like your do-it-all for distance. It'll easily get you to 500 yards. You can stretch it to 600 yards. Past that, it really starts struggling. You need more magnification. You need more. You need a better tool, basically. So anyway, some things I want to share with you guys. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, the main point of this video is, like, most people will acknowledge that the red dot is better for CQB, close distance shooting. But the thing I wanted to bring out is that the red dot magnifier, in many cases, might also be the better tool for distance shooting out to 500 yards, just because it's faster, right? There's less things you got to do. You just flip the magnifier on, get to your holding point, take your shot. Okay, so drop some comments. I'll talk to you all soon. All right, we're gonna shoot the 500 yards again with the Palmetto 11.5 inch. Tighten this up. I loosened that up earlier for my cant. All right, so this time it looks like we got 4 out of 5 on the paper. Looks like the wind shifted. It was blowing them to the left a little bit because we got one in the middle. And maybe the wind, you know, we got a shift because then I got 3, because that's where the other ones landed, right? The ones with the circle are the 5 that I landed and I shot earlier. I think that was a total of 5 for 17 inches. Yeah, we got 5 at 17 inches at 500 yards earlier. This time we got 4 impacts. The 4 are at 15 inches. We got 15 inches, and then one got blown to the left there. So we had a wind shift, but still, man, 500 yards, 15 inches is damn good. And with the first 5 that I did, I mean, if I dropped the 5th one, which I'll usually do, I'll look at 4 out of 5. I'm at 14 inches. So we're getting pretty consistent, you know, 4 out of 5 for 15, you know, for about 14, 15 inches with this Wolf Gold out of the 11.5 inch barrel.